What is activism?
I think it's a process of freeing yourself. And I think when I think of activism, I think from the inside out. So I think personally, then I think community. No, I think personally, then I think family, then I think community, and then I think world. So I think it's the process of freeing yourself on all of those levels and constantly questioning the systems and institutions that you're functioning in and where your belief system to function within those systems and institutions comes from. But I'm a firm believer that activism starts from the inside out.
Where does that come from? What led you to see that or begin to believe that was activism at its core?
Well, it was my process. It was my own personal process. But I come from a huge family that talked about politics on a regular daily basis. Like it was always a conversation in our household. I remember the Clarence Thomas confirmation hearings being on in our house 24/7. We're talking about it. I identified with the political party as young as the 8th grade. So politics and activism always centered around family for me because it was a discussion within our family. But my own personal experience was when I was Republican in the 8th grade. And my mom was the head of her union, and she had a daughter that was a Republican. It was like, God bless her, because she just let me, kind of go through that phase. But she wouldn't shame me. But I remember I had a cousin who came down, and she was talking about the confirmation of Clarence Thomas, and I was really quiet. And my cousin was like, "You're so quiet. You were talking a lot. Now you're quiet." And my mom said, "She's not quiet. She's a Republican." And I was like, yes. And so she made me explain, my stance. So it was always very personal for us and always personal choices. But when I graduated from high school, I was a kid who believed, people were shades of gray. Racism was isolated incidents. Like, that's not really what's going on in the world. I was aware that I was Black. Like, I knew I was Black. I knew my history and all of those things. But I didn't see racism as systems and institutions. And when I got to college, I took African history and became a Black Studies minor. And I had to take psychology of the African American, taught by Naeem Akbar. And the transformation began.
I'm sure. Wow.
It was like, oh my God, I've been lied to all this time. And not lied to, but just allowed to go on my own personal journey. Like given knowledge, given tools, but allowed to take the journey myself. And so going on that personal journey motivated me to transform within my personal relationships, and then motivated me to help to begin to transform my community and ultimately people outside of my community. And what I began to see was, working in the community in particular, I would meet people who in the beginning had all of the wealth of knowledge and were really intelligent people and had really, really great ideas, but they sucked at personal relationships. And that was sort of jarring for me because my mom raised us to where, what you do personally shouldn't be different than how you interact in your community. So it was extremely, extremely jarring for me. And so that confirmed for me that you got to do the work personally first. I would meet men and women too who were activists and artists that people loved and admired. But personally, it was like, you suck as a person. Like, I don't even want to be around you. And I just didn't want to be that kind of person working in the community. So just having that experience really confirmed for me that you have to do the personal work first. And also when it comes to family, even though I was a Republican at a young age, my mom modeled for me that the political was personal. So my mom was the head of her union because she felt it was important for women, particularly Black women, to have a voice, because a lot of the decisions that the union was making didn't take into consideration race and gender. I remember when Jesse Jackson was running for president, and she came home highly upset because her union had voted not to back him. And she felt like, and they were like, well, he can't win. And it's not personal, but it's about backing the candidate that we feel has the best opportunity to win. And her thing was, well, if we don't support him, that's why he can't win. But they didn't see why it was very personal. There was a line for them between the personal and political. Mm-hmm. And for my mother, it never, ever, ever was. So,
would you say it is for you?
No, the personal, the political is personal for me. When I think politically, I think how those things affect people on a personal, day-to-day, kitchen table level. Because, my whole family worked in factories. My mom was affected by NAFTA. When NAFTA came, her company was able to stay open. I think they closed maybe a couple of years after I graduated from college, maybe 2 years at the most. But they left and went to a different country. And so that affected her tremendously, because my mom is a hard worker. And then your company gets up and moves, and you have to fight for your pension. And then you're getting this terrible severance package, and you have to think about health care. Mm-hmm. For someone who was a hard worker and believed that you earn things and you work to get things, and then you wake up every day and you don't have anywhere to go, she fell into a deep depression. And so I think when people think about NAFTA and they talk about workers, people don't think about, what about workers' mental health? What does it really take to retrain a baby boomer? And so when I think of the political, I can't help but to think of the personal.